negates the actual meaning of what that is. It's a definitive statement.
Let me respond to that. So he doesn't say that God is not the Son of Man. It doesn't say that. It says God is not a son of man that he changes his mind. This whole thing is about his character and him keeping his word. The whole thing, that's what the whole thing is about.
But it's the scripture.
Oh, okay, so let me ask you this.
Sure.
Does the verse say that God cannot be man?
That's an argument from silence.
It's not. It's
yes,
an
it
argument
is. That's a semantic fallacy. That is a logical fallacy,
How?
which shows, because it's called the argument of silence.
It's not called the argument of silence.
Yes, it is,
it's
because you're saying it's...
We're using what it said. Look,
what is used? You're saying that because it says God cannot become a man, therefore he could. But that's an argument coming from absence of evidence.
No, it's not. It's not. Look, for example, this is in what time is this verse brought out? And who's the prophet at the time?
Remind me.
Moses.
Okay.
So, do Christians believe that God was a man in Moses' time? No, right? No. So he became a man in the first century. He took on flesh. This is why this is important. When it says that God is not a man that he lies, you're trying to say, well, see, God is not a man, Jesus is a man, so therefore he's God. He's not God. We're not saying that God was a man in Moses' time. This is something that happened in the future. So this is why I asked you, does it say that God cannot become man?
Again, that's an argument for silence. You can't have the absence of evidence be evidence. I'll give you an example. Does it say God can't become a horse? Does it say God can't become a fly? There's so many things you could say from the absence of evidence, but you have to provide the evidence when talking about scripture for who God is.
I got you.
So again, just because God uses an example according to his essence and nature, doesn't mean that you could say, okay, now he can become this, now he become that, because he didn't say that he can't.
Well, so it's not an argument from silence. This is why you won't answer the question, because you know where this is going. You know that it doesn't say that God cannot become.
It's a logical fallacy.
Let me land this. That's a scapegoat. Saying that it's a logical fallacy doesn't answer the question. It doesn't say that God cannot become a man. So that's
it also doesn't say God can become anything else.
Well, hold on a second now. So you're saying bring the evidence of the contrary. So I'm not. All you had to do is ask me, man, where does it say that God can become a man? All you had to do was ask me that. Isaiah 9:6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So it says that God is coming and being born of a son, right?
What are the four names that he should be called? Wait, no, you brought up Isaiah 11:9.
I asked the question based on this.
Wait, yes, but it's very important that you brought this up.
Yeah, I asked the question.
When was he ever called Mighty God, Wonderful Counselor, Everlasting Father?
You're not engaged with the question, are you?
But you're the one who brought it up.
And I asked the question.
And the question, but you can't skim over that. You're trying to
Can we do one at a time?
Sure.
Okay, so my question was on this. When it says that the Son, right, is the mighty God, according to this verse, it identifies that the Son is God, correct? Okay, so who's the mighty God according to the verse?
Whoever Emmanuel is, but it's not Jesus.
It doesn't say Emmanuel.
No.
It doesn't say Emmanuel.
Listen, and I'll tell you why it's not Jesus. Because there were four names that in this specific Emmanuel, whoever this Emmanuel character is supposed to be called. Hold on. You insinuated that it's supposed to be Jesus.
That's not what I said.
You said...
I need you to focus. Focus.
Okay, who is...
Focus. No, focus. The Son, it says, is the mighty God. Correct?
Just read the verse.
Okay, I'll read it again. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, Father of Eternity, Prince of Peace. Who's the mighty God according to the verse?
So none of those titles were ever given to Jesus.
Who's the mighty God according to the verse?
None of those titles were ever given to Jesus.
Let me ask it this way. Is the Son the mighty God according to the verse?
Whoever it's referring to.
Okay, got it.
But Psalm says, ye are gods and ye are all sons of the Most High. And it refers... Hold on. I'm not shuffling.
Not a Muslim shuffle.
It's not a Muslim shuffle. Psalms 82:6 says, I said ye are gods and ye are all sons of the Most High. So they were called gods in the Old Testament, but with a lowercase g, but they weren't Yahweh.
Well, you know what? That's a beautiful point. You're close, man. You're close. There are many beings that are called these gods with a lowercase g in a sense, but they're not identified as Yahweh, which is interesting, because when we go to the very next chapter, Isaiah 10, We read verse 20 and 21. It says that Israel shall return to Yahweh. They shall return to the mighty God. So who's the mighty God according to the verse?
So do you know actually in Isaiah 42 it identifies who the suffering servant?
This isn't about the suffering servant.
But this is what the prophecy is talking about.
This is not Isaiah 42.
When you're talking about I'm talking about Isaiah 11:9.
No, I'm not talking
mighty
about
God, everlasting Father. None of these
slow
titles
down.
were ever given to Jesus.
I'll ask it again.
These prophecies are given are said that these are talking about Jesus.
Isaiah chapter 10, verse 20 and 21, it says that Israel shall return to Yahweh, the remnant shall return to the mighty God. In Isaiah 10, who is Israel returning to?
I don't know who.
I just said it.
Okay. I don't do leading questions.
I have to.
Say your point.
I'm trying to hold your hand and take
your
it to the
point.
water.
No, because I don't agree. I'm not going to agree with what your interpretation
all we got to do is read. What do we do here, y'all? We just read, man.
Okay, so make your point and I make your point. I'm not going to ask you leading questions.
That's how we do things, man.
Okay, well,
okay,
that's not how
so
I
it says that Israel is returning. Israel is returning to Yahweh, the mighty God. According to that verse, who's the mighty God?
I'm not doing this leading question stuff. Just say your point. Just make your point, and then I'll
I need you to answer this because this is my point. I can't just give it to you and be like,
you can.
No,
Yes,
I need us to be on the same, understanding.
Listen, this is leading. You can just say your point without my participation.
No, according to the verse, it says that Israel is returning to Yahweh, the mighty God. Who's the mighty God according to the verse?
Tell me.
Yahweh, right? Do we agree?
Just continue with your point.
I need us to.
I'm not gonna agree
For me to continue, I need us to agree.
I'm not gonna play tag along.
It's not playing. Look, it's for honesty and conversation.
Just make your point.
See, if I just give it to you like this.
Wait, hold on. How did we get from Numbers 23:19 to this?
Good question. How do we get from Numbers 23:19?
This is a little Christian shuffle that you're doing. We were talking about Numbers 23:19, and then now we're going all over Isaiah.
He says, what does this have to
stick to Numbers 23:19?
Samir, he asked, what does this have to do with Numbers 23:19? He says in Numbers 23:19, it denies. My brother, relax, please. Hey, somebody, go ahead and get him more. So, Ty. Yeah, get him out of here. He's over here doing things, man. So look, just for the conversation. So you asked, what does that have to do with Numbers 23:19? What this has to do with that is.
I can't.
Come on, man. You over here heckling for no reason, dog. Get out of here, bro. Beat it. Bye. Yeah, get him out of here, man.
Jesus.
Wasting our time.
That's an information. We gotta do that every now and then. Have some respect. We got it.
What is he talking about?
All right, let's not let him distract everything. And Samir, can you hear me? Can you hear me good here? Okay, so Numbers 23:19. Right, you brought this up saying God is not a man that he should lie, nor is the son of man that can't change his mind. The reason why I took you to Isaiah 9 and Isaiah 10 is because I asked you, does the verse negate that God can become man in the first place? The answer to that is no. It doesn't say that he can't become man. So that's what I'm showing. You said, well, you're arguing from silence. So I'm showing you biblically that the scripture says that God will become man. That's the whole point of that.
So Hosea 11:9 says, I am God and not a man. Again, God describes who he is.
That changes. He says it. He doesn't change. Don't let him ruin this.
I just wanted to ask real quickly the word that's so the two verses that were mentioned about Israel returning to Yahweh, the mighty God. Oh, sorry. And the one in Numbers 23:19. Do these both use the same word for God?
Yes. Well, yeah. The word is El, right? The Hebrew word is El for God.
Do you happen to know the verse? I don't blame you if you don't know the verse in Hebrew. Do you believe it's?
You mean for me to recite it in Hebrew?
Well, no, yeah. Like, do you happen to know like what the last?
Well, the word is El Gibor in Isaiah 9:6 and Isaiah 10:21. It's El God and Gibor is mighty, right?
Okay, so it's the same word within Numbers 23:19.
In Numbers 23,
as well as,
it just says God is not a man. So I think it's Elohim in that one. Elohim is not a man that he should lie, nor is he son of man that he changes.
So
his
how
mind.
do we know it's referring to
It
the
is,
same?
it is a Yahweh. It says Elohim. Huh?
So how do we know it's referring to the same God? Because we do know God can be different words within the Hebrew, within the Greek, whatever.
Well, yeah, just because it's a different word being used based on like it's part of speech, it doesn't change the identity of the person. So the in Numbers 23:19 is talking about Yahweh, right? And he's asking
But it doesn't
Yahweh
say
to destroy.
Yahweh?
Earlier in the verses, yes, and also later.
But
So-
it doesn't say it in that sentence.
Not in that. It just says God is not a man that lies, nor is he a son of man that changes his mind.
Well, then I'd have to look at the usage, because sometimes within, like, for example, in the New Testament, Kyrios, the word that's used
Lord.
sometimes for Jesus, is also used for, like, landowners, for people who, like, you know, have a place of business. Like,
Yeah.
I'd have to know if the word El is used only with God, or if it can be
No,
used in
no.
different contexts.
So the word El is just like it's a generic word in the scripture for God. That's all. So it's about the identity of who God is. So yeah. So according to the scripture, it's talking about Yahweh.
Okay, can we? There was a good point that I wanted to make with Isaiah, I believe, what 11:9.
Isaiah 9:6.
9:6. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, he shall be called Mighty God.
Did you acknowledge that the Son is the mighty
Then
God?
I answer. Just let me answer.
No, that's the question on hand. You haven't answered that yet.
Well, let me speak. I'll let you speak on
As long as you answer, bro.
My style is I go, you go.
That's not my style. You gotta answer questions here, bro. No, you gotta answer questions.
No,
man.
no. That's not how a debate works.
That's exactly how a debate works.
My debate style is different than your debate style. Exactly.
Well,
your debate style requires cooperation.
It's a conversation.
It's not.